This is Joy Forsythe from ArcSight Security Research, and I'm talking today about the HPE Attack Life Cycle. This is really important for ArcSight and Activate Security Framework because we need to identify the parts of an attack from initial recon to eventual objectives. We use these attack stages to define use cases that help you stop attacks before they impact your business. We have defined the HPE Attack Life Cycle instead of using one of the other attack models because we wanted to focus on the defender perspective rather than the attacker. This highlights events from devices within your scope and control. We also want to highlight the progression of attacks, both simple and complex. Recon. This is the initial step of most attacks, consisting of non-intrusive intelligence gathering from an external source. Recon might look a lot like delivery exploit because it may be a series of unsuccessful attempts preceding a success. This stage may be omitted if the attacker has enough information to succeed on the first attempt. One example of recon is a port scan, which may show up as a series of firewall deny events. Delivery. This is the stage where the payload is delivered to an asset within your control. Delivery mechanisms include email, file downloads, or even access to external media physically present in your environment. Exploit or install. The target is exploited by the payload, potentially installing binary or otherwise ensuring a foothold within the network. This is really two stages, exploiting a weakness in your system and installing the payload, but from a defensive perspective they are often indistinguishable. Exploit install results in the installation of software, possibly benign in design, that can be used with malicious intent. Activities. The next few steps are internal attack activities, which the attackers use to extend their reach within your control. They rely on initial exploit and take advantage of all the privileges and access they achieved in that stage. Simpler attacks can skip these activities entirely and achieve their objectives immediately. C2, Command and Control. Command and Control is communication one-way or bidirectional from a compromised host to an external attacker. C2 is how an attacker uses their foothold in the network to gain more information or control future attack activities. It may be as simple as uploading or posting to a predetermined external URL. Lateral recon. Recon from an internal compromised source to either an internal or external target. This can be used for future attacks or to collect information for exfiltration. Expand access. Often the initial exploit achieves only lesser privileges, and the attacker then must expand their access before carrying out additional activities or objectives. The attacker may try to achieve privilege escalation, create or compromise accounts, or to change permissions and group policies. Lateral movement. After compromising one asset, attackers focus on new targets and launch the attacks from the internal foothold to additional assets. Establish persistence. Once the attacker has compromised a host, it must ensure that future defensive actions do not remove its foothold. To ensure the compromised host remains compromised, the attacker does things such as disabling antivirus software or other protections. Concealment. In addition to establishing persistence, the attacker needs to hide the evidence of its exploit. This concealment can include tampering with logs or editing registry keys. Objectives. All of the steps up to this are process steps working toward achieving an objective. In information security, we always consider what we are defending to be confidentiality, integrity, and availability. When assessing risk, you have to decide whether the loss of one of these properties on a particular asset is damaging to the organization. One or more of these is the attacker's true objective. Exfiltration, or loss of confidentiality. Data exfiltration is when an attacker successfully transfers valuable data from an internal to external location. This can include things such as credit card data, personal identifiable information, or PII, or even intellectual property data. Data tampering, or loss of integrity. This is when the attacker is able to modify a data repository, possibly irreparably, which could include website defacement or data poisoning. Recently, ransomware has become a major concern and is a great example of data tampering. If data tampering and exfiltration occur at the same time, it may be particularly harmful as the target may not even know what data was lost. Denial of service, or loss of availability. Attacks of this type focus on resource exhaustion or tampering with assets to ensure they do not provide expected services. Any successful attack lifecycle includes at least one objective, so our goal is to identify and stop the attacks before they reach these stages. When an attack is successful, we still need to identify it in order to recover.